Hello lads, ladies, gents, ladetts, whoever, whatever, welcome back to another video. It's safe to say that the dominant genre of the late 80s to mid 90s was the 2D platformer, as there was only so much consoles at the time could do. As we began to rapidly improve the technology that would power our after school days and weekends, 3D began to be the standard. It was only natural for platformers to move into this, however, not every game did. Some became what were known as 2.5D platformers. Think of games like Klonoa and today's game, Pandemonium. Published by Crystal Dynamics and developed by Toys for Bob, who are more recently known for their work on the Spyro Reignited trilogy, Pandemonium attempted to do something I don't recall a lot of platformers of its time doing, and that was have its fair share of lore. Taking place in the land known as Lear, we meet our main protagonist, a terrible jester named Fargus, his stick puppet Sid, who is completely sentient, and Nikki the acrobat, who is somehow also a sorceress. Upon booting up the game, we meet this trio as they're on top of a tower casting magic in an attempt to create fireworks, and as you would guess, some shenanigans ensue. You might say they cause some pandemonium. After Fargus suggests a spell, the group accidentally summon a giant monster known as Yungo, who simply eats an entire village in a single bite, meaning they need to set out on an adventure to fix their mistake. Because we have two human characters in this party, we can swap between both Nikki and Fargus before each level. The core stuff between the two is pretty much the same, as we can run, jump, and duck. However, what makes Pandemonium stand out is the fact each of these characters has their own special ability. Nikki has the double jump, which is, to me, arguably the best in the game, since it allows you to get to those secondary paths and avoid enemies a lot easier. More on those paths later though. While Fargus has the ability to attack enemies head on. However, this isn't as useful as you might think, since you only have a limited range and a limited amount of iframes, and since there can be quite a few enemies on screen at any given time, this can leave you pretty open to taking damage. So, if you want to challenge, play as Fargus. If you want to get through the game, play as Nikki. This journey will have you traversing through 18 different levels filled with traps, enemies, winding paths, and puzzles, all the while showing off a massive amount of variety in its pretty fascinating world design. I have a hard time putting my finger on exactly what I could say to describe what I'm looking at, because all that comes to mind is Dungeons and Dragons. Its use of magical powered devices, the caves, strange monsters, and odd architecture just keep bringing my brain back to D&D. Even the opening cutscene reminds me of it, when they mention a level 10 spell, and in order to fix their mistake, they need to go on a quest to find a boon. It's just screaming D&D the platformer to me. Not enough for you? Well, beyond just the three wacky main characters that could easily be user characters in any given D&D campaign, we have more than the traditional way of defeating enemies that most platformers have. By that I mean jumping on their heads. We also get access to magic power pickups that we can use to aid in our battles. This includes a fireball, ice ball, and a shrink ray. By the time you get to the second game, you get access to a thing called the Eldritch Fireball. So, I think I made my point. You will notice, unlike most platformers of old, you can take more than one hit, allowing for two at least in the early days. If you want to increase that amount, you could find pickups throughout the levels that will allow you to permanently add more hearts. Well, at least until you turned off the console, because in what was a strange choice, you couldn't actually save your game, at least for the console versions. So instead we got the ever common password system, meaning you would need to backtrack and learn the game inside and out to know where these pickups are in order to have a smoother experience. In what is a saving grace though, as is for a lot of games of this era, it has cheats. And even though it is only a 2 to 3 hour experience, I highly recommend using the cheat like I did for more lives and for more hearts, because it does get incredibly painful towards the end. This game isn't overly difficult, but it definitely has its challenge. Outside of the power-ups I mentioned before, you will notice there are tons and tons of coins for you to collect in each level. Like you would expect, after collecting a certain amount, you gain an extra life. Though, in what is another strange choice, you need to collect 300 of them. Now, you will find 300 of them pretty quickly, but why 300? It's just such a weird decision. Is it because there's 3 characters and you need 100, so 3 by 100, therefore 300? I don't really understand. If you do want to try collecting everything possible, then you're going to need to make the most of those branching paths I mentioned at the beginning. This is where your character selection will determine if you can or can't go a certain way, in which you'd probably want to make sure you pick Nikki, because she's the one who can kind of go everywhere, whereas Fargus sucks. Not a fan. He's ugly, stinky, and ugly. A lot of those branching paths actually really just lead back into the main path that you're going. They're more just like little side shoots, if anything. You will find nice collectibles and you do get rewarded for going down them, but they aren't necessary for finishing the game. You will notice out the gate that the game is pretty quick, far from a lot of the slower, more precise platformers of its time. Pandemonium sees you going 100 miles an hour, and although you're not Sonic, you're definitely going to be flying through things here. It makes the collectibles more integral to the overall game design itself, as it helps you slow down. It makes you explore the weird and wacky level designs. They're generally well laid out, and they do have enough variation to make redoing them to go down those different paths worthwhile, but they can feel a little bit disjointed when it comes to their design choice. It doesn't always make sense as to why things are the way they are. Why are there these weird floating teeth things? Why are there random bridges that are only 3 steps in length? It doesn't hurt the overall presentation of the game, but it does leave me a bit confused as to what they were thinking. And it could just be because of the name of the game, they just threw things at a wall and let it stick. It would make sense, but even the enemy designs are victim to this. I mean, look at this thing.
He made me in his own image.
Hell, the sounds they make. Pandemonium is a strange mishmash of ideas. It's bright and colourful, generally quite pleasing on the eye, at least for the time, but the character designs are a little bit questionable. It just feels like there's a little bit too much going on, with its OST basically being the only seemingly focused part of its overall presentation. And although I might not have been overly positive up until this point, the OST is for sure a high point. It has a wonderful mix of medieval thematics while making them a little bit more modern with a hint of campiness to them. They have a wonderful bouncy energy, and although not really something you would go out of your way to listen to outright, in the context of the game, they fit the levels just perfectly. Composer Burke Trashman, who I apologize for butchering your name, worked on titles from Star Control 2, The Horde, Gex 3, and Toe Jam and Earl 3. Sadly, he seemingly hasn't composed music outright since 2002, which I think is a shame. He has a great style and does an impeccable job of matching the music to the theme of what we're actually playing. He still has done some audio work in more recent years, but not so much in terms of a soundtrack. The game itself controls pretty well, with the exception of some input timings, such as the double jump, feeling like it has a little bit of a learning curve to it. Nothing you can't master though. It makes the game itself pretty damn accessible for everyone. And sure, it does have its frustrating points because it does get hard by the end. But if you collect those heart power-ups as you go, or cheat like I did because I'm trash at this game, you'll probably find yourself having a great time. It's definitely a trip of a game, and it is pretty self-aware of its own shortcomings, and even some of its odd design choices, making it have that B-grade movie type quality to it. If you like the gameplay, but you wanted it to be completely different in terms of the plot and characters, you could always play the Japanese port, titled Magic Hoppers. Everything else is the same, minus the cutscenes now being anime instead of nightmare fuel, and the general story has completely flipped. Now, don't ask me what it is, because I have no idea. I don't understand Japanese all that well. But it's nice to see them get the Mario 2 treatment for once. It's not a landmark title of the genre, and it's more of a hidden classic. Thankfully, Pandemonium itself is still available on Steam and some other consoles. I played the PlayStation version for this video, and it is a game I do recommend, but I would say get it on sale. It's a flawed experience, but it's not one you're going to forget anytime soon. Hell, if you enjoy it enough, there's a sequel that was released a year later that is basically more of the same. So with that, ladies, gents, ladetts, whoever, whatever, it brings us to the end of another video. I hope you enjoyed this look back at Crystal Dynamic and Toys for Bob's Pandemonium, the most oddly named game that I can think of. If you ever played this game, let me know in the comments below, or if you have any other kind of weird, wacky games that you remember from your childhood, share them, because it's always fun to talk about them. If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting that like button. If you want to go that extra step, you can hit the subscribe button. If you want to go that extra mile, you can support me on Ko-fi from just $1 a month like these lovely people here. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there. Bye.